Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Anybody who follows my channel will probably have heard me say at one point or another that I do not back Kickstarter projects or crowdfunding projects in general. However, that is not 100% true, because in the latter part of 2021, I did break my own rule and I did back a Kickstarter project. And as I have just received my rewards from backing that Kickstarter, I thought I would take the opportunity to show you what I received, but also spend a moment talking about why I chose to back this particular project. The project in question was Moonstone the Arising, which was to raise the funds to produce a supplement for the tabletop miniatures game Moonstone, which is a game I already played. And there are several reasons why I backed this campaign. If you're not interested in that, you can look in the video description below. There will be some timestamps so you can skip ahead and just get a good look at what I purchased. But very quickly and simply, as I already play the game and I already have some of the miniatures, I know the kind of quality that Goblin King Games are putting out, so I pretty much knew what I was getting into. Secondly, it was a small campaign with a very short time span between funding and delivery. It was only a few months. Putting my money down on something that I may not get for a year, maybe even 2 years, in the case of something like Kingdom Death, more than 5 years, that really doesn't sit well with me. It's also not very helpful for running this channel where if I put money down but don't receive stuff for a good couple of years, I have to find other things to buy in the meantime to talk about. I would much rather put my money down on something that I can get relatively quickly. The third reason, and to be honest the least significant reason, I'm not going to try and take any kind of moral high ground here, Goblin King Games are a small indie company, so I feel a little bit better about chipping in and helping them out. I feel like they need it more than some of these other big companies like Cool Mini or not. And besides, as I already mentioned, I know the kind of quality Goblin King Games are putting out, and they may be an indie company, but the level of their rules, the level of their production of printed materials, their resin miniatures, they are rivaling some of the big names. They really are putting out excellent quality material. But the final reason, and I guess the main reason, is the reason that I feel least happy about. What you are looking at in front of you is the main purchase from this Kickstarter, the Moonstone the Arising supplemental book, which has additional rules, it has new characters, new scenarios, rules for running campaigns, loads of new narrative fiction, and new artwork. This is the thing I really wanted, and this book was only being produced in hardback as part of the Kickstarter campaign. After the Kickstarter campaign, Goblin King Games will only be making this book available in paperback. And that put me in a position where I felt I had to back, really, because I have their glorious core rules book in hardback, and how could I have this on the shelf and then have a paperback supplement next to it? I really had to have the two hardbacks. I had to have that on my shelf side by side. I am a sucker for a beautifully produced hardback book. So there was no choice there, really. I had to put my money down. And if you did back, you got some exclusive backer rewards as well. There was an exclusive miniature, which is really nice. And there were also several add-on purchases of exclusive miniatures. And because I know the quality of the Moonstone miniatures, I felt I had to buy those exclusive miniatures as well. I didn't want to miss out on them. So I guess I did get suckered in by that exclusivity. And I understand why companies on Kickstarter use exclusivity, especially small indie companies, but nevertheless, it's one of my least favourite aspects of crowdfunding in general. But all that aside, let's take a quick look at what my money got me. For the record, the core pledge was £60, and for that £60 you got the book that you see here, there was a deck of cards that I will show you in a moment, and there was an exclusive miniature. And I have to say, this book is lovely. If we open it up to the front, inside there is a Kickstarter limited edition sticker. It is signed by Tom Greenway and VG Thorne, that is the game designer and the narrative lead, and my copy is number 381 of 600. So that's a nice little feature of this edition. And I'm not going to flick through every page of this book because the video would be rather long. It's 176 pages in total. It is full of narrative fiction. It has loads of new content. It is a treasure. I'm very, very happy with this book. But we'll take a look at some of the stuff that it's got in there. There's a very nice full colour map of Tauber, so you can see where all your different factions of the world come from. We have an introduction to what this expansion is all about, some storytelling fluff, loads of this. There is so much fiction in this book. And then we have some new rules and clarifications. There's not a lot of new rules and clarifications. It really is quite minor stuff, and mainly to do with things like terrain and elevation. This supplement does introduce one new faction, the Elric, which are the Wizards of Grommel. They're kind of their own thing. They are superior to all the other races in the world, and they have their own mysterious machinations in place. They are the wizards who want all of the Moonstone that everybody else is squabbling over. But then up here we have our other faction symbols. We have the Commonwealth, the Dominion, that's my team, the Leshevolt, and then we have these mixed factions. You have the Commonwealth and Dominion, the Leshevolt and Commonwealth, and then the Leshevolt and Dominion. That's how they are dividing up all the different races so they can squabble amongst themselves. The new rules only cover a few pages. They are very well laid out, nicely written, nice and clear, lots of diagrams, massive diagrams showing you how things like elevation are working, clarifications on a few abilities and squeezing between objects and people, and some clarifications on catastrophes when your special abilities go wrong. And throughout the book, they do have these lovely little adverts. They're kind of in-world adverts that you might see down at the tavern. There's an advert here for Gertrude, who can deal with any troublesome fae that may be causing havoc in your neighbourhood. And then we have a new campaign section. This was a big thing for this supplement. The introduction of campaigns to link together your individual battles. So you can upgrade your characters. You have these campaign cards that you can bring into play. And it's relatively straightforward, but it's nicely laid out again. Clear rules, clear diagrams, neatly worded. I haven't found anything yet that's very clunky or very difficult to comprehend. It's all very straightforward. I have to say, I don't think I'm really going to use the campaign rules. This is one of my sort of pick up and play type games. I'm really interested in the world and in the miniatures. It has a very nice whimsical fairy tale feel to everything, which I really enjoy. I just can't see myself playing a lot of campaigns with it. I just don't think I would have enough people that I could get around to play the campaign with. This is quite a crunchy game. I would say the rules are kind of at odds with the style of the miniatures really, because once you drill into the combat system and the special ability system, it gets really quite thinky and it doesn't seem to be as casual as it might first appear. And I don't say that as being a bad thing. I think it's really nice that it has that level of crunch to it, but it does make it a game that's a little bit difficult to find people to easily just get involved in a campaign with. Fortunately, because real life can get in the way, they have had the sense to add this element here on making campaigns fit your group. It covers things like shorter campaigns, dropping games, and things like that, because real life can get in the way of fun sometimes. After the campaign stuff, there are pages and pages of stories, and then you get to this miniature gallery, and the miniature gallery is lovely. We have a page dedicated to each of the races. We have the gnomes, the humans, the fairies, which are wonderful, but my personal favourites, the goblins. The goblins I am mainly collecting at the moment. I want all of them really. I particularly want the goblin airship, which is an inflated toad. It's lovely. Then we have the fawns, which are particularly nice because they have murder bunnies and a jackalope. And then there is the Cult of Leshevit, which I also really enjoy because it has loads of witches. My least favourite faction, I would say, is the gnomes. And then we have some big units at the back here. We have trolls and giants. More of these wonderful adverts, the Circus of Shadows, excitement, wonder, a good old time, come for the show, stay for a newfound purpose in life. And then after maybe another dozen pages of stories, we have the story scenarios. All of the story scenarios, they have a recommended force list for the two factions involved in the fight, but it also says that you can play these story scenarios with any miniatures you have available, which is a nice bonus. And then right towards the back, we have a new section of characters. There was a section of characters in the core rules book, but they've obviously introduced a lot more units since they published that book, and they've accumulated those here in this section. And on each double page spread you get 2 characters, you get a nice piece of artwork. If you are buying the official miniatures, you get character cards in the blister pack, so you will have all of this information when you buy any unit for the game. But you can proxy in other miniatures of course, so having these rules in the book is a bonus. And I'm not going to show you all of the characters because this video would be massively long because there are loads of them, but it is nice to note that mixed in amongst the characters that have already been released, there are teasers for forthcoming characters, including something I'm very pleased to see, another set of pirates, and indeed pirates that I can ally with my goblin pirates that I already have. We have Swash, Peggy, and best of all, over the page we have the Powder Monkey in his Bermuda shorts. I have to have a powder monkey for my goblin pirate ship. And that's it. After the characters, there's a few more bits of narrative fiction which I haven't read yet, and then they round off the book with a couple of pages of those in-world advert flyers that might be appearing in a tavern somewhere. Overall, an absolutely lovely production. Beautiful artwork, really nice binding, really nice hardcover production. Honestly, don't have a bad thing to say about it. Also, as part of the $60 pledge was the campaign pack, and I'm not going to go through this in detail in this video. As I mentioned when I was looking through the book, I'm probably not going to play this as a campaign game. Never say never, it may happen one day, but as it stands at the moment, it's not something I'm likely to do. But in this deck you do have a whole host of campaign cards, and while they are of course designed for campaign play, you could, if you wanted to, use them in your one-shot games. Will I? I don't know. And I don't really want to spoil a lot of these cards for you. I think it's the kind of thing that if you are going to play this game as a campaign, it's nice if your opponent can throw these at you and you aren't expecting them to happen. But I will just show you this one, just to give you an idea of how the campaign cards work. This one is marked with the Wizards of Grommel symbol, which means any faction can use it, and it is called Brown Nose. You play it after any game. You choose another player in the campaign. The chosen player may not sabotage your next week and must support you if able. Sabotage and support is a mechanic where you can do things to the other players in the campaign between your battles. Also in the deck you get a set of really nicely illustrated upgrade cards, and again these are for campaign play, but there is nothing stopping you introducing them into your one-shot fights. You can just agree with your opponents, we'll add a couple of upgrades to our units, and then you can sift through these cards and pick out something that takes your fancy. But look at this, every card is illustrated. It's really beautiful line art illustrations, the kind of stuff that I really, really like. Really nicely put together, really nicely illustrated. I would say the one thing that they have slipped up on is they have done a black border on the cards, and of course black borders will start to show damage a little bit quicker than other kinds of cards might. You might want to sleeve these just to make sure they don't get dinged up too much. And as I mentioned before, there was also an exclusive miniature as part of that core pledge. This is Diana, Queen of the Fae, and this is her in an enraged form. We have here the body, the wings, and then there is a second sprue, which is a sort of magical vortex. It's a scenic element that goes on the base and then she sits in the middle of it, so it looks like there is a tempest of magic forming around her because she is in a bad mood. And this seems really nicely cast. You can see there is a little bit of resin fluff that needs to be brushed off, but all of the previous miniatures I have had from Goblin King Games have been very easy to clean up and have painted up very nicely. And they have actually included two cards with this miniature. You have Diana, Queen of the Fae, and then you have Diana Enraged. So you have two different versions of Diana, and on the back of these cards you have the upgrades for when she is in combat. They also threw in a free poster. It is double-sided. It has the artwork on one side for the original core game, and on the reverse it has the artwork for the supplement, for the Arising supplement, and as you can see it is folded. I generally don't think much of posters at the best of times, but once you have folded them, to me it's just a waste of ink and paper because it is no longer something that you could display. If it had been rolled, then who knows, maybe it might have ended up in a poster frame somewhere in my house, but as it is, no. But there was a couple of stickers too. You got the Moonstone logo as standard, and then you could pick one free faction sticker for free. I of course picked the Dominion because I am a goblin boy. And while that was it for my core pledge, There were 2 exclusive miniatures that were add-on purchases and I couldn't leave them behind. So I added an extra £16 to my order to get Voth and his Homunculus. Here's Voth. He is the first Wizard of Grommel that they have made. And look at the beautiful detailing on this miniature. It's going to be so much fun to paint. I love it. It's wonderful. When they showed the concept art, I was intrigued by it. I thought it looked really nice, and they have done a wonderful job of bringing that to life. It is everything I could have hoped for. Look at that face with that beard. That is a proper grumpy wizard face. And he has his absolutely lovely homunculus buddy who carries his book around for him. I am a little bit worried about trying to freehand some script on the back of that book. It's a little bit beyond my pay grade as a painter. And of course you get your character cards with the Wizard of Grommel logo at the top to say that you cannot include these in other factions. We have Voth with his upgrade repel on the back, and we have our homunculus with an upgrade skitter away on the back. And if you're interested to know how these cards work, what these upgrades mean, I have done a video on the channel where I talk about the card combat system in some depth, and I do at some point intend to do a playthrough on the channel for this game. It's something I've been intending to do for a long time and I just haven't got around to it. The final purchasable miniature was a little bit less interesting to me. It was an alternative form of Kalista, which is a Leshevolt priestess. I don't collect Leshevolt at the moment, but it was an exclusive miniature, so I kind of added it to my order just because I didn't want to miss out on something I might want in the future. Yes, I totally got FOMO'd, but it's a nice miniature. As I said, I don't collect this faction at the moment, but there we go. It was £10 to add it to the order, so I thought, in for a penny, in for an extra tenner. We have one frame here, which is the body, and then on the second frame we have her little antlers that go on her head, and then we have this spell effect which goes around the edge of her base. And then, as always, we have our character card, Kalista, with her upgrade on the back, Slip into Shadows. And this is just an alternative sculpt, so although this miniature wasn't exclusive for the Kickstarter campaign, Kalista is still available for everybody to add to their forces. So there we go, that's everything that I got from this Kickstarter campaign. And it delivered really quickly. It was supposed to deliver at the end of November. There were a few delays and I got it just towards the end of January. So it overshot a little bit. It was delayed a little bit more because of Christmas. But considering everything that's going on in the world today, I think Goblin Games did pretty much do a good job of getting things out when they said they were going to. At this moment, I think there are still a few people waiting to receive their rewards, but I think that should all be resolved very soon now. I think you can probably tell from this video that I'm really happy and excited with what I got here. I think some people will balk a little bit when they think about the fact that I paid £86 for a book, a deck of cards, and 3 miniature packs. But again, we have to remember Goblin King Games is a small company. The prices are a little bit higher, but you are getting exceptionally good quality. And of course we are in the realms of tabletop miniatures games here, which generally tend to be a little bit more pricey anyway. I have always been of the mind that I would rather spend a little bit more on things that I really love, rather than spending a little bit less on having loads of stuff that I couldn't care less about. So I am more than happy to fund Moonstone, to fund Goblin King Games, and to keep having them make the great miniatures that they're making, and the really cool rule set. But speaking of miniatures, I kind of feel like I want to put the ones together that I received so we can get a proper look at them. Let's do that. We have moved across to my workstation and I have very quickly assembled the 4 miniatures that I received with my pledge. And as I have come to expect from Goblin King Games, the miniatures went together very well and they look really nice. First up is Kalista, and look at the lovely detail on this miniature. This is my least favourite of the set. I just think that she's slightly less interesting than things like the wizards and the fairies. But nevertheless, it's a very nicely sculpted miniature. This miniature was actually selected by the community during the Kickstarter campaign. There was a vote to see which character should get made, and obviously I voted for the Goblin. There was going to be an alternative version of Swiggerty Swooty, and I would have much rather had that, but this one's nice anyway. It's not for a faction I collect yet, but maybe I will in the future. Next up we have Diana Enraged, and I have not fully glued this miniature. I have left it so that I can remove Diana and paint the scenic elements separately, because obviously that's going to be very difficult to get a brush down inside there. But this is a really nice miniature, lots of lovely detail. I do tend to prefer miniatures that don't have lots of spell effects on them, but I'm kind of okay with this one because it's such an integral part of the design of the creature. This miniature is also a little bit fussier and fiddlier than I normally like. I tend to prefer these simpler miniatures, but it's so well done. It looks so cool and dynamic. And I think that's going to be a wonderful leader character for any fairy force. I would say a really nice choice for an exclusive miniature for the Kickstarter campaign. Something bold, something that's going to stand out, something that looks a little bit special, something bombastic that's going to catch the eye on the tabletop. Next we have Voth's Homunculus, and this was the only miniature from the set that did not require any assembly. It's really, really nicely detailed, even down to the creases in the paper of the book. We can see the book is resting on the homunculus's tail. Really very nice. But the star of the show, I have absolutely saved the best to last. This is Voth, the Wizard of Grommel, and absolutely far and away my favourite piece from this game entirely, I would say. It's such a lovely miniature, it has such lovely detail, such amazing character. Again, it does have a spell effect, he is summoning a fireball, but I just don't mind it in this particular case. I just think this miniature is lovely. I would say this is my favourite wizard miniature that I own, possibly my favourite wizard miniature I've ever seen. I just think this is absolutely incredible. Really, really nice. The face, it has so much character. This particular character looks cunning, conniving, a little bit evil, but still funny, still has that whimsical fairy tale feel to it. Really, really nice. And really, it's a shame that they did make this miniature exclusive, because I think a lot of people coming into this game will see this miniature and they will really want it because it's so nice. And it is a shame that some people will not have that opportunity. But that's it, that's all I've got to say about this, so I'm going to wrap up now. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.